Morning everybody, this is Stephen Pugh of the Home Bible College. This is a lecture for the benefit of the fourth year students of the Home Bible College. You'll know that we're going through the subject of the Christian minister at this time, and you'll notice that amongst the subject of the Christian minister there are various types of ministry. Well, today it's lecture number 6, and we're going to talk about the Christian deacon. And in my description it says the Christian deacon has special responsibilities to look after the poor and to provide for their temporal needs. Now, the original deacons look after the poor widows in the daily distribution of food in Jerusalem, and they were chosen for their spiritual qualities, and they were full of the Holy Spirit and wisdom. And in Romans chapter 16 we find a number of people mentioned, and amongst those people that are mentioned are deacons that are female. So let's look at this question of the Christian deacon then. The Christian deacon has special responsibilities to look after the poor and to provide for their temporal needs. It's always been a particular point of church life that the Christians in a church look after those people that are poor. Now, in Jerusalem, in the earliest days, there was no social security program, there was no health insurance, there was no poverty relief. There was a certain amount of help for the poor by the Jewish state, but that was very limited indeed. And so the Christians, because these were widows who had no means of support, they either had no children to support them, or they certainly, as they were widows, had no husbands to support them, then they therefore were very vulnerable indeed, and the most obvious need they had was for daily food. And the situation in Jerusalem at the time was that there were Jewish people who were Hebrew speaking, and there were Jewish widows that were Greek speaking. Sometimes those that were Hebrew speaking are just referred to as the Hebrews, and sometimes those Jews that are Greek speaking are just called the Grecians. This is a particular idiosyncrasy of the New Testament. And the Greek widows, the Grecians, were beginning to murmur. They were beginning to complain about the Hebrew widows who seemed to be getting better treatment. Maybe it's because of a communication problem, because of the language difficulty. It's difficult to know exactly, but that seems to be something of the problem. And so the apostles recognized that this was a problem. And what they did is they said to the whole church, you look out from among yourselves 7 men that will be able to administer this matter on our behalf. So you look out to them. They also gave to the church the particular qualifications that they should look for in these men. They should be men full of the Holy Spirit and full of wisdom. Now, those two things are quite different, but very important. First of all, this was a spiritual work. All work in the church is a spiritual work. And they needed people that were men whose lives were full of the ministry of the Holy Spirit in their lives. They needed people that were completely dedicated to living and being led and being empowered by the Holy Spirit. That's the first criteria. The second criteria they needed men of wisdom. Men of wisdom. You say, well, what's wisdom? Well, wisdom is the correct application of knowledge. It's not just about being knowledgeable. You can be very knowledgeable and very foolish. Wisdom is the correct application of knowledge to given situations. And so what the New Testament church needed above everything was men of God, men of utter integrity, men who were full of the Holy Spirit, men who were wise. These were the men that were chosen. And what the church did is they looked out amongst themselves and they chose 7 men. It's very interesting that amongst those people that were chosen, when the names are recorded, it is the Greek names that are recorded, the Grecians. And what this did, you see, is this enabled this language difficulty to be completely overcome. And the result of their ministry was that this difficulty was completely obliterated in the New Testament church. Okay? And what the apostles did, quite rightly, they said, you choose them, and when you've chosen them, we will confirm your choice. Okay? So the apostles didn't get involved in the choosing. They said, when you've made the right choice, we will confirm that choice. Okay? And these people will be ordained. Now the concept of ordination is that they are called to do a task, to do a service, or to do a ministry. They were to be the servants. Okay? And they were called, and they did look after this issue, and the result was great blessing. Now, the people that were called, the deacons that were chosen, they weren't just restricted to doing only this task. They moved on in ministry and became involved in evangelistic work, and some of them became evangelists. And Stephen, notably, was a tremendous evangelist and miracle worker and preacher. His ministry was so great that he came to the attention of the whole of the religious leaders of Jerusalem, and eventually they put him on trial and they stoned him to death. So these deacons were not at all insignificant men. They were very important, but their original work was not the preaching of the gospel. Their original work was to care for the poor. Now, the spiritual qualities of these men, okay, because deacons are mentioned elsewhere in the New Testament, and when Paul lists the spiritual qualities of deacons, they are actually exactly the same as that of elders. And of course we know that elders are either pastors or evangelists. But the important thing is this, that they're noted for the same spiritual qualities except for one, that the deacon is not required to be a teacher of the scriptures. Okay, but apart from that, their qualifications are exactly the same. And of course, some deacons, they become deacons and they work in that ministry, and then the Lord then calls them to a higher ministry, the ministry of the preaching of the work, and that's fine. That would then be in the realm of eldership. That would be in the realm of evangelism or in the realm of pastoral work. Both of these ministries come under the head of eldership. Now, in Romans chapter 16, when we go through the passage, we notice that there are a number of women. They're obviously women because they're female names. So there's a number of women who are referred to as deacons of the church. Okay, so the concept of being a deacon is not restricted only to male. It is including females as well. So this is just a little beginning on the subject of deacons. It's a very, very important subject, and I wish you every blessing and look forward to speaking to you the next time. God bless you. Bye for now.